Live. Is the other mic connected? Yeah, I believe it's that one there. So do you feel a bit right? Don't you just let the trooper read until more brothers come out like this one? Is there another apocrypha over there? Is there one over there? All right, we're gonna start from the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. Also, any questions, just put them in the chat and we'll get to them. Is the one over there? Just see if there's one in the back, probably the camp equipment. All right, now this is the I.S.U.P.K. started out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General YAHANNA. Also, remember, check out the General's radio show, which is Monday 2 a.m. We also have the General also has on Saturday 2 a.m. Also, here in the UK, we have classes Monday 7 p.m., Wednesday 7 p.m., Thursday 7 p.m. Those are live from Birmingham. The address for that is 394 Lodge Road, B18 5PW. And we also have online classes, which is Tuesday 7 p.m. The Brotherhood class, Friday 7 p.m. the Lashwan Kodash class. And today you're probably wondering why we're doing a class on a Sunday. That's because we're here doing the Feast of Dedication, which is one of our memorials. So that's what we're here celebrating today. So this one is run like a 2-hour class, whereas the other ones we do a Sabbath service. Why? Because those are the feast days of the Lord, whereas dedication and Purim is memorials. So they're more like memorials. So yeah, if I could, Ira, can you get me First Maccabees 1 and 1? You got one with it? All right, take this one for now. I'll put it up on here. First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 1.
This is the book of Maccabees.
You need the mic just over there.
This is the book of Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of the Shittim, had smite Darius, king of the Persians.
So nice. He killed Darius, the king of the Persians. Why? Because obviously every nation wants to rule. So what happens? Nations go to war. One man wants to take over another man's land. So what do they do? Go there, slaughter, and those kind of things. Go ahead.
That he reigned in his stead.
So now he killed him and did what?
He reigned in his stead.
So he killed him and reigned in his stead, meaning what? After he moved him out of the way, he then took his position. And that's what most people who run empires do. They wipe out one empire, then they take over their land, and then they take all your resources, all your money, and rule over your land. They then put their what? their rule there, their law there, and those kind of things. So they was doing these things from what, thousands of years ago. Go ahead.
The first over Greece and Mede, and made many wars.
And he made many wars, man. This man made many wars because that's what they do, man. That's what our oppressor does. Makes many wars. Come to your country, slaughter everyone. He'll go to war, and he knows what. He's got a stronger army, more weapons, better military. So he know in his mind he believes he's going to win the war. So that's why he does it. Go ahead. You got one.
And won many strongholds.
And did what?
And won many strongholds.
And he won many strongholds. So they come to your place and take it over and win many strongholds. Meaning what? They then set up cities there, set up military bases there, and so forth. That's what they first do. First to put a base there, or first to operate from one city, then they start to move into a next city and the next city. They do those kind of things. So that's what they was doing at the time. Go ahead.
And slew the kings of the earth.
And slew the kings of the earth. So you would have what? Your king who's ruling over your nation. And they came and slew that king. Why? Because they wanted to rule the whole earth. They wanted to rule the whole world. So what did they do? Remove them kings, and then they can put their rule there. So if your king was the strongest man in your nation, and you see that him and his armies got wiped out, you then realize, you know what? There's new people who's come to take charge. We can't really step to them because they wiped out something that we thought was strong in the first place. So then they set up bases there, and then you have to then follow their rules, kind of like the Afghans, kind of like them, man. They're running from what? From the new rule. Why? Because Al-Qaeda has took over everything. So now they're running from Al-Qaeda. Why? Because they don't want to be under the rule of the Taliban and whatnot. So that's why they're running from it. Whereas back then, you would have been under the rule of the Greeks once they set up strongholds in your city. Go ahead.
Verse 3. And went through to the end of the earth, and took spoils of many nations.
So they went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations. So they conquered many nations, man, and took spoils, meaning what you had, they done stole it and made it theirs. And this is what they do: take spoils of many nations. They come to your land, take the oil and all of them things. It's nothing new. They always do these things. Go ahead.
In so much that the earth was quiet before him.
And the earth was quiet before him. Why? Because nobody wanted to mess with this man. Nobody wanted to mess with this nation. Whatever they said just went. Everyone done whatever they told them to do. The earth was quiet before them. Why? Because they ruled with violence and murderers and everything, man. They would have been everything that you would have been afraid of. So you wouldn't speak against their reign or their rulership. You would just do what the king told you to do. And that's what our people was doing. They was just doing what the king told them to do, following his laws and statutes and commandments. That's what they was doing, following the order of the king. Go ahead.
Yeah, Shalom. Before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his
Meaning exalted. This man was what? Lifted up, man. This man was lifted up above everybody else on the face of the earth. Why? Because he was the man at that time. His army and the people under him, and the whole earth exalted this man because they seen what he done, how he conquered many countries and cities, how he had many strongholds, how he won many wars, how he took spoils of many nations. So nobody wanted to go to war with this man. This man was exalted, man. He was lifted up, feeling like he's untouchable. He can't be harmed. No one can't do nothing to him. And the whole earth was quiet before him because they seen his military, they seen how he rules and so forth. So no one wanted to mess with him. Go ahead.
and his heart was lifted up. Verse 4. And he gathered a mighty strong host.
And he gathered a mighty strong host, meaning a strong army. So if you see a strong army, chances are most people's going to do what they say. Why? Because you know that's life or death, depending on your decisions. So the earth was quiet before this man. He had a strong host. He had an army. He had strongholds. So they was everywhere. There was in all them countries that they conquered, all them cities that they conquered. Go ahead.
And ruled over countries.
And they ruled over countries. So they would do what? Put their philosophies everywhere. Kind of like today, this is why everywhere where our oppressor rules, what happens? There's a Christian church there. There's a white Jesus there. There's Christmas there. There's all their holidays there. Even everywhere, even you go to the Caribbean, there's a Church of England and all these places. They put churches of England everywhere. That's not even England, but they got a Church of England there, showing that what they rule from there also. Why? Because they conquered that island and then they put whatever they want there. So that becomes like another miniature England. So all these countries at the time would have been like a miniature Greece or whatnot. Why? Because all their customs is there. They then give the people their language, their religion. Then before you know it, everybody becomes like the Greeks. They're not Greeks, but they become like they are Greeks. Why? Because that's who's in power at the time. That's who's ruling the earth at the time. So everyone near enough became Greek, and that's how we started to speak Greek. Why? Because we was conquered by the Greeks. They then give you their language, they give you their customs, and before you know it, you're doing everything that they do. Kind of like today, we doing everything that the British do. So the Greeks was doing the same thing that the British do today. Go ahead.
And nations and kings who became tribute, tributaries unto him.
So then they started to tax other countries, kind of like what England and America do. They tax other countries, man. When England's about to go to war, what happens? All these other countries send them money, send them donation, send them tons of donations. Even countries who ain't rich like that, poor countries like Barbados and India send all their money to England to help England go to war, not realizing that whoever wins the war, your position's not going to change, man. We send all this money and pray for England to win wars, and our position's never going to change. Now, these countries was doing the same thing. They became tributaries onto the Greeks. Go ahead. And that's how these countries become so rich, by making your country poor. So they then drain your country of its natural resources. You become poor, they become rich. Go ahead.
And after these things, he fell sick
So now this man done all this killing and slaughtering. After these things, he fell sick. Go ahead.
and perceived that he should die.
So he fell sick and he perceived that he should die. So he knew he was going to die based on the sickness that he had. And if you know anything about medical professions back then, medical care wasn't that good back then. Only now it's decent, and now it's still not that good. Like in the 1500s, you'd be lucky to be live past the age of 4. In the 15 and 1600s, they was dropping dead so much that they couldn't get heirs for the throne or nothing, man, because all their children was dropping dead because medical care wasn't as good as it is today. Go ahead.
Verse 6. Wherefore he called his servant, such as were honorable, and had had been brought up with him from his youth.
So now this is when Alexander calls what his 4 generals under him, man. He calls his 4 generals, his 4 honorable men. So he called them. So instead of putting one man in charge, he gave them rulership over different parts. One would have Egypt, one would have this part, one would have that part. So he broke up his kingdom divided it into 4, and then gave it to his 4 generals. Go ahead.
And parted his kingdom among them,
And he parted his kingdom among them. So he split it, broke it up into the 4. Go ahead.
while he was yet alive.
Go ahead. So he had that. He had Ptolemy, Seleucus, and can't remember the other two's name. But go ahead.
Verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died,
Go ahead.
and his servant bare rule, everyone in his place.
So they then bade rule everyone in his place. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them.
And
Many
now,
years.
after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves and their sons after them. So now, after this, they done stepped into a rulership position. So now, they're ruling over 4 different countries and 4 different places. So what would happen? One man would become king over this place. That would set up him and his family. So then his son would be next in line. So these 4 people became what? 4 families that is running all of Alexander's countries. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And after his death, they all put crowns. Okay. So that the son after them. And evil were multiplied in the earth.
So it says evils were multiplied in the earth. So now evils were multiplied in the earth. Why? Because these four men is reigning in four different lands and whatnot, and they're spreading their evil, meaning what their Greek customs, their Greek philosophy, which is heavily rooted in homosexuality and all of those things. So they're spreading all of those things. So it says evils was multiplied in the earth, and evil started to multiply even more when they decided they're going to go to the children of God and give the children of God their Greek customs and force them to follow their customs. Go ahead.
And there came out of them a wicked root.
And out of them came a man more wicked than all of them. So this wicked root which came out of them is called Antiochus. Go ahead.
Antiochus surname
Epiphanes.
Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome,
And this man was a hostage at Rome at one stage. Go ahead.
and he reigned in the 137 year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
And this was the year that he reigned of the Greeks. Go ahead.
In those days, when there out of Israel wicked men.
Read that again.
In those days, when there out of Israel wicked men.
And in those days went out wicked men, men of Israel, men of our nation, men that became Christians, men who are like Christians today, wicked men. Go ahead.
Who pursued many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathens.
They said what?
And they said, let us go and make a covenant with the heathens.
So many Israelites said what? Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen, man. And this is what our people do today. Why? Because they want life to be easier. So they just see it as, you know what, let's go join the people who seem to be having life easily. That's what tons of our people do today. They don't fight. They just give up and give in. So they went and made an agreement with the heathen, man. Go ahead.
They were round about us.
So now the heathens that are around about us, they made agreements with them. Our people still do that till this day, man. Till this day, we make agreements and all of them things that we shouldn't do. The Lord told us what? We're supposed to be separate. But obviously we choose not to be separate. Why? Because we make agreements with nations that the Lord told us not to. Go ahead.
For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
And they said, since we departed from the heathens, we've had much sorrow. Meaning life's been hard. I've been losing jobs. Everybody's been looking at me weird when I try and be who the Lord's called me to be. So we said, since we've departed from them, we've had much sorrow. So we said, you know what? We're going to become Christians. We're going to become Muslims. Whatever makes life easier. That's what we said we're going to do. And that's what these wicked men out of Israel did. Go ahead.
So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license.
So it said some of the people were so forward that they went to the king themselves, and the king gave them a license to sin, meaning the king gave them a license to join in on the Greek practices, to join in and do what the Greeks do. Go ahead.
Who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen.
And he gave them a license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. Now we done the same thing that these Israelites done with the Greeks. We also done the same thing in the Caribbean. We used to watch the East Indians do their practices, and at first they said, no, you can't join in. Then over time, they said, okay, you can join our practices. And that's why Rastafarians today smoke all this weed, because they learned these practices from the East Indians. So they used to sit in a forest and watch the East Indians putting weed in a ram's horn and smoking. And at first, the East Indians said, no, it's only for us. It's a ritual to our God. And then over time, the East Indians gave black people a license to join them and do what they do. And that's how that practice began of Rastafarians smoking weed and doing that prayer that they do. Because they all do a prayer. Well, most of them don't do it now, but back then, that's how it originated. Every time they'll smoke, they'll do a certain prayer. Read on.
Whereupon they built a place of exercise.
And then the Greeks built a place of exercise. That's where most exercise comes from what the Greeks to set up gyms, coliseums, gladiator arenas, and all them things. So all the things you see today comes from the Greeks, and this is why in the gym everybody's naked. Why? Because the Greeks used to wrestle naked. They used to do stuff naked. So all the Olympics and all of those kind of things comes from the Greeks. This is why everyone at the Olympics is naked and unclothed and all of them kind of things, because all these practices comes from the Greeks. Go ahead.
at Jerusalem,
Now they
according,
set up these things at Jerusalem. Go ahead.
according to the customs of the heathens,
So now these things were our customs. These was their customs. Go ahead.
and made themselves uncircumcised,
Meaning they made themselves unclean by the practices that they was doing, by them not holding on to the truth or not holding on to their law, statutes, and commandments. They made themselves uncircumcised, meaning they know they're not supposed to be eating pork, but then they started eating pork. They know they're not supposed to be eating shrimp, but then they started eating shrimp. So they made themselves uncircumcised, meaning unclean. Go ahead.
and forsake the holy covenant,
And did what?
and forsake the holy covenant.
And they forsook the holy covenant, meaning what makes us us is what? Us keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments, man. Us being set apart from everybody else on the face of the earth. That's what we're supposed to be, set apart from everybody else. But they forsook that covenant. Why? Because they wanted to be just like the heathen, kind of like today. Go ahead.
And join themselves to the heathens,
And
and
join
were
themselves to the heathens. We do that to this very day, man. We join the very people killing us. We join the very people harming us. And that's not what we're supposed to do, man. As long as we do that, we're always going to be in this situation that we're in. We're always going to be slaves. Whoever we join, we always get the short end of the stick. Every single time. Go ahead.
and were sold to do mischief,
And then
mischief,
we started to do mischief, meaning all sorts of evils, things that we wouldn't dream of doing. Once we joined the Greeks, we then started doing them, and then it became normal to us. Like now, there's so much things that we do which goes against the laws of God. It seems normal to us. Why? Because we've been doing it for so long. Because we see everybody else around us doing it. But the difference is this: when we do what everybody else does, we die for it, man. We die for it. Why? Because we ain't supposed to be doing it. We have a father who loves us and cares about us, and like any good father, he punishes us when we do things we're not supposed to do. So you can do things what all these other nations do, but chances are you're going to be punished 10 times worse for it because the Lord cares about what you do. Now, with them, they can do whatever they want, but with you, you can't, man. You have laws, statutes, and commandments that you have to stick by. Go ahead.
Now, when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt. Then he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of two realms.
So he wanted what? The dominion of two realms. So this man wanted to rule over multiple kingdoms, and that's how it starts, man. First to take one country, then to go and get two, then to go and get three. They want the whole earth eventually. Antiochus wanted the same thing. Go ahead.
Verse 17. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude.
So now he went into Egypt with a great multitude, meaning a great army. The same way how what the Romans entered into Britain in the beginning, man, with a great army. Same way the same way how the British entered into the Caribbean with a great army. They've always been doing this in history. They come with multiple numbers, and then people see the numbers and get afraid. They've done the same thing whenever they want to take over people's land. They're sending multiple numbers, and you see all of them, and then most people just surrender there and then. Go ahead.
With chariots and elephants and horsemen and great navy.
So it came in with chariots and horsemen and all of those things. Go ahead.
And made war against the Ptolemy,
And he made war against Ptolemy, who was what, the king of Egypt, right? At this
king
time.
of Egypt.
Yeah.
Right,
So Ptolemy was the king of Egypt at this time. So this man went and made war against them. Go ahead.
But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death.
So this king fled, and many were wounded to death. Go ahead.
Thus they got to the strong cities in the land of Egypt and he took the spoils thereof.
So now he went there, slaughtered them, killed them, robbed them, took the spoils. The spoils is their goods, so he spoiled them and took their goods and all of those kind of things. Go ahead.
Verse 19. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. Verse 20. And after that, Antiochus had smited Egypt. He returned again in the 140 and 30 years, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem.
So
With-
now, after he's obviously overtook Egypt, he already had a realm, wanted another one, so he took Egypt. Then he wanted another one, so now he's come up against Israel, meaning he's come up against us now. Go ahead.
with a great multitude,
And like we said, he came with a great multitude. Read on.
and entered pro, 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 proudly, proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar.
So now, this is when they came to the temple and took away all of our stuff which was in there. They took away the golden altar. They took the menorah. They took all of those things. So you can look through history, and you can see the inscriptions of them walking off with the menorah. So they then came and took the things which was holy to us. Why? Because if you want to destroy people, obviously you take all of their stuff and then you let them start afresh. So if you want to destroy people, you would take their menorah and just give them a Christian cross or something. So they took all of our stuff like that. Go ahead.
And the candlesticks of light,
And the candlesticks of light, which is this right here. So they took our candlesticks, which is called the menorah. Go ahead.
and all the vessels thereof.
And all the vessels thereof. So back then we had all vessels of gold, which Solomon put there. So they took all of those things, all the vessels. Go ahead. Which is like the cups that you drink the wine out of and stuff.
And the table of the shewbread, and the pourings, and the pourings vessel.
And all the pouring vessels, there was a fine gold. So you can read all of that in I believe it's a King somewhere. You can read it when Solomon's breaking the whole thing down about what he's putting in the temple. So everything you read that Solomon put in the temple, they then took it out. So yeah, go ahead.
And the veils, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden ornaments that were before the table, all which he pulled off.
Go ahead.
He took also the silver and the gold,
So they took the silver and the gold, everything that we had, they took it. Go ahead.
and the
Say-
precious.
So now this is them taking our spoils. At first was taking the spoils from Egypt and all the other countries they conquered. Now it's our turn for them to take our spoils. So now, because they got away with what? Stealing from all them countries, and Ptolemy was afraid of them and he fled and left this country and whatnot. Now they realize, okay, then let's go mess with them Israelites now. Let's go take all of their stuff. So now it's our turn for them to spoil us. Go ahead. Because they was just going around the whole earth, robbing every single nation. Go ahead.
And the precious vessels. Also, he took the hidden treasures, which
And they took the hidden treasures, which means what? They search, man, because there's certain things that you wouldn't find unless you're looking hard. So they was digging, searching, looking for everything. They took the hidden spoils. Go ahead.
and where he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre.
So now he then massacred everyone, meaning he's done, killed everyone, done a great massacre, meaning he's took all the goods and murdered us at the same time. Go ahead.
And spoke very proudly.
And spoke very proudly about it, man. He didn't care about it, just murdered us like they do today. They murder us till this day, and they speak very proudly about it. They don't care that they kill us, because why? Killing us don't mean nothing to them. So they just do it. Go ahead.
First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 20. Salaki, verse 25. What read on, sir?
Pass it to let Arbon do some reading. Pass it to Arbon and then Aaron just take it in turns.
Verse 25. Therefore, there was great mourning in Israel.
Therefore, what?
There was great mourning in Israel.
Like every time, man, the murderers. There was great mourning in Israel. Why? Because your loved ones were being killed. Your father, your son, your sisters were being killed. So there's great mourning in Israel. Why? Because we lost our loved ones. Meanwhile, he spoke proudly about it because it ain't his loved ones dying. So they just kill us, laugh and joke about it. Meanwhile, for us, it's mourning, man. Go ahead.
In every place where they were.
In every place where they were. Because now they kill us like we're animals, but really we back then we loved each other more than we do today, man. So you seen a black man die, that meant something, whereas now we die so much, no one really cares no more.
Right.
Back then there was a great mourning in Israel because we know we're not supposed to die like that, man. We know that we're the children of God, so we know we ain't supposed to die the way we died back then. Obviously now we just believe we're supposed to die this way, but I read on.
So that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed.
Meaning all of that was changed, right? Because of this great slaughter, man. So
Right.
everyone's mourning. The young men were made feeble, meaning they couldn't fight back on nothing. Because why? They seen it as, you know what, we're outmatched, we're overpowered. They've got all this military and we don't have none of this. So our strong men that we would look up to then became feeble. They became weak. Because what your young men is meant to be strong. They're the men, it's their time. Usually in your prime between what? 18 and about 30. So if you see these men have all become weak, what's going to happen? Your children is going to become weak because they're going to be like, wow, when my dad was supposed to be strong, he couldn't be. The older men whose days already passed, they're looking at the men that's meant to fight for their nation, like they can't help us. So what hope do we have? Read on.
Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber
And there was no happy times for us. Now you're supposed to be happy. Why? Because you're getting married and all these good things is happening in your life.
Right.
At this time, all that goodness was put on hold, man. Because probably your husband who you was meant to get married to was killed. A wife's waiting for a husband, they don't show up because he's been killed. All of these things was happening because the Greeks done what? A great massacre. As long as you was an Israelite, they was just killing you. Why? Because that's who was their enemies at the time. Go ahead.
And she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness.
And she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness, meaning a woman that's in the marriage chamber, she's supposed to be a happy, man. This is supposed to be the best day of her life. Why? Because she's getting married. So this is supposed to be the best day of her life, but she was in heaviness, man, because of what was going on. Go ahead.
The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof,
Go ahead.
and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion.
And the whole house of Jacob was covered with confusion, meaning they wanted to know, why is this happening, man? Why is this happening to us? Meaning they was confused. Like sometimes things happen and you're confused. Like, how did that happen? Such and such was just here yesterday, man. How they're not here today? That's the kind of confusion that they had. Because obviously you don't expect your loved ones to just, you see them 2 hours ago and now you're finding out they're dead. You don't expect that to happen. So we was confused, like, what's going on and how did this happen? Go ahead.
And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah.
So now, 2 years later, this happened 2 years before, and then now 2 years later, he sent his chief to come and get tribute from us, meaning come and get riches and spoil and money, whatever they wanted at the time. Go ahead.
Who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude.
So he came with a great multitude, man. That'd be like you seen the army at your door. Obviously, you're going to be afraid and you're going to give up everything. They came like that. So they always come with a great multitude because they're very big on numbers. So they usually come with a ton of numbers to scare people. And this is why the Lord's always told us, don't be afraid of the numbers, man. Don't be afraid if they come with all these men. Right. Like the Lord said, he can shut it up just with few men. Right. The Lord said he can run down 100 with just 7 men. But obviously, if you don't fear the Lord, you'll see 100 men and you'll be scared for your life. You'll turn around and look at your brothers and say, well, there's only 4 of us. We're outnumbered. Now, if the Lord's with you, the Lord can make 1 man take out 1,000 men. Because what's his name done it? Samson and so forth. Other men in the Bible's done it. The story of the 300 and so forth. Go ahead.
And spake peaceable words unto them.
So now they came as a large multitude and they spoke peaceable words, meaning they spoke nice words. Don't worry, we're not here for no violence. We're not here to harm you. We're just here to get our money and go. So they speak words which calms you down. Your anxiety stops because you think, okay, then This man ain't gonna kill us because he's gave me his word. And the police do that till this day, man. They say to you, just tell us the full story and we'll make sure you don't go to jail.
Right.
You tell them the full story and you still end up going to jail, man. This man always does it. He speaks peaceable words, makes you feel at ease, man, when really is setting you up the whole time. Read on.
But all was deceit.
But all was what?
But all was deceit.
Hold that. Someone give me Isaiah chapter 51 and I believe verse 20. Anyone got a Bible on them?
Isaiah what?
51 and 20. If it's the right one. So it said all the words it spoke, it was all deceit. Now the book of Isaiah is what? Before the book of Maccabees. Anyone got Isaiah 51 and 20? Go ahead.
Isaiah 51 and 20. Thy sons are fainted.
No, not that one. The one his words just moved. Is it Psalms 55 and 21, I believe? Is it? Psalms 55 and 21. So now this man spoke peaceable words unto them, and they fell for his peaceable words, man. Whereas if they was following the Bible how they were supposed to, they would have understood that no matter what this man says, don't believe him, man. Never take his word for it. If they was following the Bible, they would have read this in Psalms, which is written by David, man, and they would have remembered this. This would have came to their mind. Go ahead.
Psalm 55, 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
So now the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, meaning this man spoke good words, man. Good words that just sounded right. Everything sounded right and good. Go ahead.
But war was in his heart.
But what?
But war was in his heart.
And this man speaks to you good words, man. But in his heart is war. So now, if the brothers in the book of Maccabees was paying attention to the scriptures like they were supposed to, they wouldn't have fell for it, man. This man probably said to them, don't worry, everything's all right. Just bring your whole family outside. They probably listened to him, brought their whole family outside, and they all got slaughtered, man. Whereas if you understood what was written in the book of Psalms, you would understand that you can't trust this man. You wouldn't let him get you with these words, because it says his words were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. Now that was written in Psalms, man, in the time of David, and then now we're reading the same thing in the book of Maccabees, letting you know that our oppressor never changes, man.
That's right.
Letting you know that this man can't change,
Right.
no matter how smooth his words are. Go ahead.
For
No, go ahead. Back to Maccabees.
For when he had given them, for when they had given him credence,
Meaning now they fell for it, man. They're listening to him now, and they feel calm and relaxed around him. Go ahead.
he fell suddenly.
He did what?
He fell suddenly.
He did what?
He fell suddenly.
Meaning what? This man started to kill them. He started to kill a people that was no harm to him. Meaning a people that just want to live life and live an easy life. This man fell suddenly on them, and they do that to us today, man. They fall suddenly upon us. Read on.
He fell suddenly upon the city and smote it very sore.
And did what?
And smote it very sore.
And this man fell suddenly upon the city and smote it very sore, man. Meaning he started to kill what? Blacks and Hispanics. Started to kill us. Why? Because it's all one big game to him. Killing us is just one big game to him. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. They've been doing it before Christ. They're doing it after Christ. Still doing it now, man.
That's right.
They've been doing it every time you look throughout history. This man's been slaughtering us. Why? Because he's trying to make true on his promise, man. Hold that, but someone give me I believe it's Genesis 27 and probably like the last few verses after his father dies, where he goes, I'm gonna utterly slay my brother. I believe it's 27 and something. Let's see which one it is. It might be 27 and hold on.
Genesis
27 and is it 40? Hold on.
Yeah, 41.
Yeah, 41.
Genesis 27, 41. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing.
And they hate us, man. Till this day, they still hate us. Why? Because we receive blessings that they don't have, man. We blessed and they ain't, man. So they hate us till this day because they believe that all that we have, they should have. They believe all the covenants and the kingdom of heaven and everything and the riches of the earth. They believe that it shouldn't have went to us. It should have went to them. So what have they done? Slaughtered us and tried to take these things which rightfully belong to us. This is why they pretend to be us. This is why they take all the riches which is in the earth. They try and take the things that we're supposed to have. Go ahead.
His father blessed him, and Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are.
So now he said, you know what? He's mourning for his father, and then after this, he's got some work to do. Go ahead.
Then will I slay my brother Jacob?
Then what?
Then will I slay my brother Jacob?
And Esau and Jacob were brothers, and ever since then, Esau has been trying to kill his brother Jacob,
That's
man.
right.
From the book of Genesis, and then you find that he's been trying to kill us all the way to the book of Maccabees, trying to kill us when Herod tried to kill Christ. And even in 2021, man, every country you find us in, Esau is still trying to slay Jacob, man. And that's what you find, which lets you know the Bible is true, man, because it's got it down to a T. He ain't going to stop until he could kill every last one of us. That's what they're trying to do, slaughter every last one of us, man. So they hate the fact that we coming together like this. So because they hate it means what? We should come together more like this, man. Because the Lord loves it when we come together like this, but Esau hates it, man. We need to do what the Lord wants. Go ahead, Rabban.
And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire.
He did what?
He set it on fire.
So he took. Why couldn't he just take the spoils and go? Now they had to set it on fire, man. They set the city on fire, so you could have to start from scratch and have nothing. And this is something they always do, man. Go ahead.
And pull down the houses and walls thereof on every side.
And now they start to destroy the city. They pull down the houses and the walls and everything thereof. Go ahead.
But the women and children took they captive.
And then they took the women and children. Because if you know anything about the Greeks, they rape anything, man, from little boys to little girls, all of those things. So they took the women and the children captive to enslaved them and all of them kind of things. But the men that they seen it as could maybe one day rebel or whatever, they just slaughtered them because they couldn't take that risk. Go ahead.
And possessed the cattle. Then
they took the cattle. So now this is them destroying your economy, taking everything that would make you money. Because back then you would make money off what? Off your cattle. So now if they take all of those things, you can't no longer make money. Anything you need, you have to go to them. And that's why they made sure with us, they took everything off us, everything. So now we have to go to them for everything, and we ain't got nothing that belongs to us. Why? Because they've stolen it all. Go ahead. What verse you at?
Verse 33.
Yeah, go ahead.
Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall.
So now they've gone to the city of David and they're building stuff there. Go ahead.
And made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation.
Now they put therein a sinful nation, and they always do this, man. They done the same thing in the book of First Kings, man. In the land of Israel, they did what? They put Hamites in there, so they put a sinful nation in there, and then now they've put a sinful nation in Israel again. They always do it, man. They do this, and it's like they're mocking the Lord, man. They're putting people in there who shouldn't be there. Like if you look at Israel right now, there's a sinful nation in there right now, man.
That's right.
There's a sinful nation in there right now, and they've done it before in history also. They always do this. So everything that we're reading now is things that they're actually doing right now. It's nothing new. Go ahead.
Wicked men, and fortified themselves therein.
Now they put there wicked men, and what did these wicked men do? Act like they're the children of God.
Right.
So now what happens? Us being a people who's lost our culture, we then look at the people in the land and then believe, okay, then they're real Jews, or they know about the laws of God more than we do. So much that what people that find out they're Israelite do what on the Sabbath? Sit in the dark, man, because they're copying the Jewish man, or they put umbrella on their hat, or those kind of things. Why? Because they copy the Jewish man, because they don't know how to observe the Sabbath properly. They don't know how to keep the laws properly, because they're following the Jewish man. So there's some people that won't eat a cheeseburger because they believe you can't have dairy and meat together and all of that nonsense. When I never seen that in the Bible.
Right.
But when you listen to Jewish people, that's what you believe. So they go in the land, pretend to be us, and then people then copy them. Go ahead.
They stored it also with armor and victuals.
Go ahead. Now they start to store stuff there. Go ahead.
And when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them there. They laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare.
So now that the spoils of Jerusalem, and they was laying them in places as a trap. So you would go there, and then they would catch you. So if they wanted to kill Israelites, what they would do is they'll just put certain things around as a trap, and then they see you coming, you want to come and worship the Lord or whatever, they'll come and kill you right there, man, because they were setting traps all over the city. It was a snare to us. Go ahead.
For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary,
So it was a place to lie in wait. So that's what they did, knowing that what obviously you need to go there to serve the Lord. So they would lie in wait and kill you while you're trying to serve the Lord. So this is a man we shouldn't ever forgive, man, because this man was doing all of these things. Imagine you're just trying to be peaceful and serve your God, and this man lays traps so he can slaughter you while you're trying to do it. Go ahead.
And an evil adversary to Israel.
And this man was an evil what?
An evil adversary to Israel.
And this man is still an evil adversary to Israel, man.
Right.
This man ain't your friend yet. This man is still an evil adversary, and we need to look at him just like that, man. We need to understand exactly who he is. Go ahead.
Thus they shed innocent blood.
They did what?
They shed innocent blood.
Listen, man, that's what they do till this day. They shed innocent blood. A black man can't even go jogging, man. If you jog, you have to be careful. One headphone on, one headphone off, man, because you don't know if the police are just going to shoot you out of the blue. So that's what they do, man. They shed innocent blood. Read on.
On every side of the sanctuary.
They shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary. Hold that. Someone give me 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. I believe that's the one. Yeah, go ahead.
Everything that we do,
Exactly.
are very set back to say, you walk anywhere, they're just looking at what you do. Interested and don't.
Listen, that's the oppressive here.
Book of 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. Be sober, be vigilant.
Be what?
Be sober, be vigilant.
So we have to be sober and be vigilant, man. We have to be careful about everything that we do. We have to be mindful about everything that we do. So we have to be sober and be vigilant, man. Go ahead.
Because your adversary.
Because who?
Because your adversary, the devil.
Says our adversary, the devil, man. And the devil is who? The white man, man. According to the
right.
Bible, that's who the devil is, man. Ain't some man under the ground with a pitchfork. Listen, I ain't seen a man under the ground with a pitchfork kill a black man yet, man.
Right.
Listen, I ain't seen him kill a black man. Listen, I'd rather face a man with a pitchfork than this man that has guns and tanks, man. You got a better chance of survival if it was some man under the ground. But you're dealing with a man that has tanks and all kind of weapons, man. Who is killing us? That's our adversary, man. The devil. Read on.
As a roaring lion.
And he's like a roaring lion. And what do lions want to do? Devour their prey, man.
Right.
And they look at us as their prey. So it says, be sober, be vigilant. Meaning you don't want to do what? Be around the oppressor too much. You just go to your slavery, do what you have to do, and then go home, man. I was reading some article the other day. Some sister went on some boat party with what, a ton of Edomites, man. And she was the only one that drowned. Imagine this. She was the only one that drowned out of everybody else. Listen, man. Be sober and be vigilant, man. You don't want to be around them, especially when there's anything to do with water, man. You know they've been drowning black people for years, man. That's nothing new. It says be sober, be vigilant. Go ahead.
Walketh about seeking.
And this adversary walks about seeking. So what you will see is the police is lurking late at night. They just want to pull you over. So we need to be sober and be vigilant. Make sure what we keeping all them laws, making sure we ain't doing nothing wrong. Because this man is what 9 times more likely to stop you. Now they've done their statistics say black people are 9 times more likely to be stopped by the police and beat up by the police. Why? Because this man lurks, waiting for us. Read that part again.
Walketh about seeking whom he may devour.
And he walks about seeking who he may devour. And now they devour us, and then they try and lie and say, well, they're aggressive and they're this and they're that.
Right.
And this is why when you go to court, the judge don't respect you. You could be in the right and the judge still don't respect us. Go ahead.
They're always blaming us for anything.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And any type of you know what I mean, excuse they want to use to exert their violence or madness on us. You know what I mean?
And this is why we have to be sober and be vigilant, man. Like I see all these videos of people arguing with the police, telling them, are you on your oath today according to this law? You can't bother about that. Don't work, man. Listen, the police officer is not allowed to kill you, and he still does it, man. He's not allowed to kill you. He does it, and he gets away with it. So you asking him if he's on his oath and all of this nonsense, it's not going to get nowhere, man. You're just wasting your time. This man kills you on camera and gets away with it, man. So you think pulling out your phone and recording him, being cheeky to him, asking him according to this section and that section. Listen, man, the policeman's going to kill you if he wants. He ain't got to be on no oath, man. He can tell you, you're a nigga and I'm going to kill you, man. And he'll probably get away with it. So what you're supposed to do in them situations is you remain calm, you record it, and you just put in a complaint, man. You go to the police station and you just keep putting in complaints. Then you chase up your complaint afterwards. That's what you're supposed to do instead of you pulling out your phone asking according to section this, section that. That's not going to get you nowhere, man. And that's why everyone that's done it's never got them nowhere. Go ahead.
So like this, sir.
Mm,
Right? All them people that recording and
Mm.
they do that till they get to the police station.
exactly.
And they get that double blue mat and roll them up in it and beat them.
exactly. Listen, I believe it, man. When the camera goes after a different person, all of this, are you on your oath today? That nonsense don't work, man. What you're supposed to do is just show them your license and ID. People always don't want to show the police their license. If you got it, and you just show them, man. This is what you do when you're around them. You have to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, like what the Bible says, man. That's what you're supposed to do instead of arguing with them. Just show them your license, man, and then be on your way. Instead of you trying to argue with them and prolonging it, it's not going to end well for you. This man's got the law on his side, man. This man's just gonna beat you up or do whatever he wants. You run in your mouth thinking you know something, man. All you do is you pull out your license and you show them your license.
That's right.
Don't give them all the cheek. All of this. Am I under arrest? I see all of this nonsense. Am I under arrest? Listen, man. I've seen black men who ain't under arrest killed on camera, man.
That's right.
So listen, you might want to watch your mouth. Just give them your ID and keep it moving, man. And then you go to the police station and then you put in a complaint instead of you trying to be smart and all of those things, man. It ain't gonna get you nowhere. Go ahead.
The new thing going around, man, with these Israelite men thinking that
Mm.
beat the law,
I ain't even seen it.
watch YouTube videos,
Mm.
like, am I detained? Am I under arrest? And the all that's video.
Right. Listen, man. That's the dumbest thing ever, man. You just give him your ID and keep it moving, man. That's it. He has to see your driving license and your insurance. You give him your details and you keep it moving. You being there arguing with the police, you're not going to win, man. Especially on the roadside. What's going to happen is you're going to make it difficult for yourself, and there's something that you would have got away with. You're not going to, like, say, for instance, I seen a video of a man arguing with the police. The policeman said, okay, you want to go down that route? He just said, oh, your tires are both 3 points, man. And the guy had to sit there and get them 3 points for each tire. Whereas if he just shut his mouth, gave his license, he could have been on his way. And listen, if you know your car's not fully legit and you're not fully legit, the last thing you want to be doing is arguing, man. Some people ain't changed their tires in like 5 years, 6 years. Brakes are all crunching and everything. Listen, man, the last thing you want to do is be cheeky to the police. You just give them your driving license and keep it moving. Go ahead.
It's like you should have read. That's verse 8 in First Peter. Should have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same affliction.
Actually, the main part I wanted on that was the be sober and be vigilant.
Back to First Maccabees, chapter 30, chapter 37. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it.
So now they started killing Israelites in the sanctuary and defiled it. Why? Because they're shedding blood all over it, man.
Right.
Whereas David shedded so much blood, and he was an Israelite, and the Lord said, "You can't build the temple, man," because he shedded so much blood. So he did what? Made Solomon do it. Whereas our oppressors shedding all this blood inside the temple and outside the temple, man, shedding Israelite blood, man, when he ain't even got the right to do that, and he's doing all of those things and defiling everything that we had. Go ahead.
In so much that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them.
They did what?
That the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them.
The inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. So some people fled and left, man. Do you think GOCC get this from here? Because they do all this flee doctrine, man. Listen, man, we don't flee nowhere. We stand in the face of this devil, man. Right. And listen, we're going to be here, man. We ain't going to flee nowhere. We don't need to go Cyprus or wherever everyone goes, or Egypt or whatnot. We stay right here, man. Read that part one more time.
In so much that the inhabitants of Jerusalem,
and then some of them fled into the mountains or wherever. Like everywhere we around this devil, people flee. When we was in the Caribbean, the Maroons fled into the mountains. Because why? They didn't want to face them head on. So they fled to save their life. But when you flee, what you do is you leave your people behind, man. So when you flee, you can either flee and save yourself, but in saving yourself, you didn't leave your people behind, man. Right. You didn't leave your loved ones behind that you're supposed to stay there for. So tons of people flee and leave their loved ones behind. Go ahead.
It's like the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them.
The what?
They fled because of them.
Go ahead. So they were so fearful of the Greeks that they fled. Go ahead.
Whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers.
And now the city was made an habitation of strangers, meaning one day your neighbor would be who? a black or Hispanic,
That's right.
the next day your neighbor's not that no more, man. Because why? The city's become an inhabitant of strangers. So one day you would look outside, kind of like once upon a time, Handsworth was black, man.
Right.
Now Handsworth has become an inhabitant of strangers, man. You go outside in Handsworth, EDC, Romanians, Polish. Most shops on Saw Road now there's tons of Polish shops. You got the international shop, tons of all these Polish sweets, things that we would never see 10 years ago, man. 10 years ago, we would see black people when you go outside. I mean, when black people's fighting for Handsworth, it was a black neighborhood. Now, tons of Polish there. You go to Newtown, tons of Somalians there. So now it's become an inhabitant of strangers. Go ahead.
And became strange to those that were born in her.
And what?
And became strange to those that were born in her.
And listen, like today, man, if you was born in Handsworth, Handsworth should be strange to you now, man. You're seeing all these Romanians and these Polish and these Somalians. Once upon a time, all these areas was black. So black that people scared to walk through, especially Newtown. People scared to go Newtown, man, because it was so black. And every if you wasn't from Newtown, you weren't really allowed to go through there, man. They'd stop you. Where you from? You'd have to lie and say Lazals or wherever, man. Whereas now, you can go through Newtown, what, ton of Somalians there. You can go through Handsworth, ton of Polish and Romanians there. The same thing that they was experiencing then. So much strangers around them is what we experience in our cities now. Go ahead.
And it's like, yeah. And her own children left her.
And her own what?
And her own children left her.
Why? Because all of them fled. So once they left, the Greeks started moving in and then put a sinful nation in there. So then the land of Israel became what? Full of Greeks and other nations. Kind of like today. What verse you at?
Verse 39.
Yeah, go ahead.
Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness.
Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness, meaning there's nothing there, man. If you look at a wilderness, there's nothing there. It's empty. Go ahead.
Her feasts were turned into mourning.
Her feasts were turned into mourning, meaning what? These feasts weren't even taking place. Why? Because the Greeks put a stop to everything that we had. Because if they stop it now, once this generation dies off, guess what? The children under them would never know that they used to keep feast days. They would never know that they ever used to do certain things.
Right.
So they tried to stop everything. Go ahead.
Her Sabbaths into reproach.
The Sabbaths into reproach. Go ahead.
Her honor into contempt.
Honor into contempt. Go ahead.
As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased.
Go ahead.
And her excellency was turned into mourning.
Everything that made us great, it no longer was great no more. Everything that was great to us is now been turned into mourning. Why? Because you can't keep your feast days because you got no temple, you got no menorah, you got nothing, you got no sanctuary. So all these things were long gone, all of them. So it was turned into mourning because you want to keep the feast of the Lord, but you can't because you're not properly equipped to. Go ahead.
Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
King, he did what?
Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
So Antiochus wrote to his kingdom that all should be one people. So now, this is when they're trying to make the world one, meaning one religion and all of those kind of things. Kind of like what they're doing today, man. The biggest religions in the world is what? Being Catholic and Christianity, man. Every single country you go, even Muslim countries, there's Christianity there, man. Even countries like Ethiopia, who claim they've never been, well, which has never been properly colonized by this oppressor, they're still Christian there, man. The king of that country, Selassie, was an Orthodox Christian, man, which lets you know that they're everywhere. There's a Church of England in Jamaica. There's a Church of England in every country. There's a big Caesar Borgia in Brazil. So this man is trying to make the earth one, as in one religion, and all people follow one religion. This is why every country celebrates Christmas on the same day.
Right.
Every country celebrates Easter on the same day. Every country has what? Christmas Day off. Even Muslims celebrate Christmas nowadays, man. That they tell you that they don't, but trust me, they celebrate Christmas. They all have Christmas dinner. They all have lights on their house. We the only ones who don't celebrate Christmas, man. Outside of this room, man, everybody else celebrates Christmas.
Right.
Read on.
And everyone should leave his laws.
And what?
And everyone should leave his laws.
And it says, and everyone should leave his laws. Meaning, whatever you're following, you no longer follow that, man, and you follow what we give you to follow. And that's the stage what we're at with our people right now.
Right.
We've all left our laws. And this is why you can find a black man in every different religion, man. You can find him in all religions. But really, back then, they wanted everyone to leave his laws and follow the Greek way of life, meaning you'd be worshipping about 1,000,000 different gods and all of those kind of things, like what the Greek was doing. You'd be worshipping Zeus and all of them things. Go ahead.
So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
And now this is the commandment of the king. He wrote it and sent it out to everywhere where he reigned. And all the heathens agreed with this commandment of the king that they're going to be one people. Everyone should leave his laws and follow what the king wants everyone to follow. Go ahead.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his
Many of the
religion. Many also of the Israelites consented to his religion.
And many of the Israelites consented to his religion, man. And this is why many of our people is in the Christian church right now, man.
Right.
This is why many of our people is getting ready to celebrate Christmas.
That's right.
Talking about everyone's happy this year because Christmas lands on the Saturday. So everyone's happy this year because it lands on the weekend and it falls perfect for them. And you got black people talking about they want a white Christmas, and I still don't know what a white Christmas is. Yeah, black people talking about I want a white Christmas and all the family must come together with the turkey and whatnot. That's because why? Many of the Israelites consented to our oppressor's religion, and they done the same thing in the book of Maccabees. Read that part again.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion.
Many of the Israelites consented to his religion. Why? Because many of our people don't have no backbone whatsoever.
Right.
They just do whatever they're told. They don't want to do no history, no research, and they don't care. They're just happy being a Christian, man. Even though they know that religion has so much flaws. Go ahead.
And sacrificed unto idols.
And what?
And sacrificed unto idols.
And they sacrificed them to idols, man. Go ahead.
And profaned the Sabbath.
And profaned the Sabbath. Go ahead.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
And now it was strange to us because we didn't know what kind of laws and customs these was. It was strange to us because we always understood a man should be with a woman, man. So when a man's giving you something new that says a man's allowed to be with a man, that's strange to us.
Right.
We're looking at that and be like, well, this is strange to us, man. To the Greeks, that wasn't strange because they only had women so they could have children, so they could have heirs and so forth. That's the only reason they had women, because obviously they needed a son to reign in their stead. So they know that what two men don't make babies, so they would have all their men on the side but have one wife. Would have this woman. That's why they have one wife, because they understood, okay, then if I have a baby with her, this would be my heir. But realistically, if they could have babies with men, they would, because the Greeks were homosexuals, man. They like being naked all the time. And this is why when you go to the gym, the changing room, everyone's butt naked in there, man. When really there's doors where you could just get changed in the cubicle, man. You could put your clothes in the cubicle if you wanted to. But they don't do that. They like to do it all in the open. Why? Because they're following after the Greeks. So this is why when they go swimming, they're in the shower naked in front of everyone, man. When there's just no need. This is why football, there's in the showers, they're all naked and whatnot. Because obviously they all learn from the Greeks. Whereas with us, we would be fully covered, man. We understand that we can't be walking around naked in front of everyone. You only do that in front of your wife, man. That's it. You only do that in front of your wife. You don't do that in front of next men and strangers and all of those things. But the Greeks would do that. Go ahead.
And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice.
And then they wanted to forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice. So they didn't want us to keep our laws and our statutes. Until this day, they don't want us to keep them things because they hate it, man. This is why every time they find out about Israelites, they tell lies and write all these articles. All the Israelites are rebels and the this and the that. Because they want to ruin our reputation, so most people don't come in. Go ahead.
And drink offerings in the temple.
And they banned all of these things. Go ahead.
And that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
And they didn't want you to keep no feast days. So instead, they switched your Passover with things like Easter and Christmas.
Right.
So now you're now celebrating things which have no ties to you, but they don't want you to celebrate what you're celebrating. Now, if this was some Christmas thing that we was doing, you'd have millions of people in here, man. You'd have queues all outside the door. Everyone would be trying to come in, but because this has nothing to do with our oppressor, nobody wants to come in. Because now in their mind, they believe that if it's not from the oppressor, then it's not authentic and it holds no weight. Because they're so used to getting everything from the oppressor. So if he don't put his stamp of approval on it, they just see it as, oh, it's not official. Whereas this is official, man. This is from the Lord. That's what we're reading right now, man. Go ahead.
And pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols.
And now they set up all these things. Because why? In our law, it says we ain't allowed to worship idols.
Right.
So now they then set up idols and wanted us to worship them. So they then sculpted up statues and standing images and all of those things. If you know anything about the Greeks, they used to worship tons of things. They had like different men that they worshiped, man. All kinds of women that they worshipped. They worshipped tons of things. So they would set up all of these idols in your land, and then you would have to bow down to them. Go ahead.
And sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
And did what?
And sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
So now they do everything in opposition to the Most High. The Most High says we ain't supposed to eat pork and whatnot. They then sacrifice pork on the altar, man, to be extra disrespectful, where they know it's something that we ain't supposed to eat. We don't really touch. We don't touch it. But with them, they said, you know what? We're going to sacrifice it on the altar, man, and we're going to get Israelites presents to watch and let them take part in it also. So they done all of these things to be extra disrespectful to the Lord. Go ahead.
That they should also leave their children uncircumcised.
That what?
That they should also leave their children uncircumcised.
And it was our customs to do what? Circumcise our sons on the 8th day. So then this oppressor came and said, don't circumcise your children. And then obviously we would do circumcision, but over from being in slavery and all them years, we lost our customs. So obviously for us, circumcision stopped. We lost our customs and our culture. Whereas before, it was common knowledge that we were circumcised on the 8th day. But once you've been into slavery, you lose your culture and your customs. Go ahead.
That was one of the main things with the slave trade. I learned in slave trade that it was barbaric.
And they still say that till this day. Because when the Muslims do it, they're kind of against it. They don't want to do it. They say, oh, it's painful for the child and this and that. Whereas, who cares if it's painful or not, man? It's the law.
Right.
You're supposed to do it, man. So the Greeks said, nah, no circumcision and whatnot. And now everybody's copied our circumcision custom. So now the Hamites do it now. When really they stole it from us. And they make out that we the dirty ones now. Because most of us is uncircumcised due to going in slavery and it not being our culture no more.
Right.
So now the Hamites do it, not realizing the Hamites only got circumcised. Why? Because Jacob made them get circumcised, man. That's the only reason. Listen, they was uncircumcised until Jacob made them get circumcised. And then his 2 sons fell on them, man. Go ahead.
And make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness.
And now that's what they do to us today. Make our souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness.
Right.
So now things that they know we shouldn't be doing, they make us do it, man. They make us eat all kinds of foods that we shouldn't be eating. They make us have sex with all kinds of things you shouldn't be having sex with. They make you do all of those things, man, to make your soul abominable. And then they tell you kind words. Wow, you can't help who you fall in love with. Listen, man, you can help who you fall in love with, man.
That's right.
You can't help. Of course you can help it, man. Of course you can help it. That's a lie that you can't. They make out like if you fall in love, if a man falls in love with a man, it's not a decision. It's a choice, man. You can delete that man's number, so look. You can delete you can delete his number and delete everything about him, so you can never find him again, man. It's a choice. They make out like, oh, you can't help it. Of course you can. Read on.
And profanation, to the end that they might forget the law.
And now they do all these things so you can forget the law. So that's what they want, you to forget the law, so you'll be breaking laws. And then as long as we don't remember these laws, we ain't never going to function as a nation.
Right.
So the reason there's so much black on black crime is why? Because we forgot the law, man. The reason we're dying so young is because what? We forgot the law. The reason we're having all manner of diseases and whatnot is because we forgot the law, because we following after them, all manner of uncleanness, which makes us ill. Now, the Lord told us don't eat certain foods. Why? Because it's going to make you sick. Correct. If you're eating animals, which you're not supposed to be eating, you're going to become sick. And we become sick. And this is why we die young from all types of diseases and get high cholesterol and all of those things. Because we ain't eating what we're supposed to be eating. Go ahead. There's a dietary law and all these kind of things, man, which will keep us straight. So we don't realize that every time we eat stuff that we're not supposed to eat, we're messing up our insides, man. You think you're normal because you can't see what's going on inside your body, but inside your body, you're messing up your liver and all of those kind of things. And then you find out when they do the autopsy, and by that time it's too late. You're already dead.
Right.
So it's only right we come back to these laws, man. Go
That's
ahead.
right. And change all the ordinances.
And they wanted to change all the ordinances. We had orders to how we lived. They wanted to change all of them. Go ahead.
And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die.
They said what?
He said he should die.
So they said, whoever don't want to do the commandment of the king, he should die, man. They said, whoever don't want to do the commandment of the king, he should die. So people heard that, oh, I'm going to die. So then they decided to do what? The commandment of the king.
Right.
Hold that. Someone give me is it Matthew 10:26 where it says, fear him that can kill soul and body. I believe is it Matthew? This one. I believe it's Matthew. It might be 10:26 or Matthew 11:26. Something along them lines. Or 27 or 29 is one of them. I believe it's between 26 and 29. I think it's in Matthew 10 or Matthew 11. I might be wrong. I don't know. It's what?
Matthew 10, 20,
Matthew 10:26.
I got
It's not.
28.
Oh, I thought it
Matthew
was.
10, 28.
It's 10:28.
I believe so.
I was close. I was close. Go ahead.
Book of Matthew chapter 10 verse 28. And fear not them which kill the body.
And do what?
And fear not them which kill the body.
So if the Greek said, if you don't follow our customs, we're going to kill you, just let them kill you then, man. Listen, it's not against God for you to get killed, man.
Right.
But it is against God for you to do what the Greeks tell you to do.
That's right.
But it ain't against God for you to die, man. It's no sin for you to die, man, for righteousness. So what did Christ say in Matthew 10:28?
And fear not them which kill the body.
It says, and fear not them which kill the body. Because a man can what? Kill your physical body by stabbing you and whatnot. Read on.
But are not able to kill the soul.
But what?
But are not able to kill the soul.
So listen, they can kill you, but they can't kill your spirit, man. They can
Right.
just kill you, and that's it. Guess what? The Lord will raise you up again and you will come back, man. And you'll be rewarded for dying for righteousness. But if you give in to the Greeks because you want to live, you're just going to live a horrible life. And the Lord ain't going to be with you, man. You're better off dying and the Lord being with you. And guess what? You're just going to come back again, man. You're going to come back again wherever the Lord wants you to be born. Fear him that can kill soul and body, not just a man that can kill the body, man. The Greek says, eat this pork and you can live. Basically, you doing that, the Lord's going to kill you anyway, man, because you're going against him. So why would you have the Lord mad at you? You rather the Greeks be mad at you and the Lord be pleased with you, man. That's what you rather do. Read on it, Arman.
But rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell.
The Lord can destroy both soul and body in hell, man. The Lord can destroy you, man. The Lord can give you an illness that you have to live with your whole life, man. The Lord can confine you to a wheelchair for your whole life or bring you back blind, man. That kills your soul and your body because you're sitting down in a wheelchair and everybody else is walking and doing whatever they want, man. And you're in there dribbling, wondering, why am I like this? Fear him that can kill soul and body, man. Whereas all the Greeks can do is kill you, and guess what? The Lord will just bring you back again, man. The Lord will bring you back again, man. And then one day, what? You might have came back with the Maccabees and been able to kill the Greeks, man. Whereas if you just give in to them, the Lord's going to kill you anyway. Go ahead.
First Maccabees 1, chapter 51. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by
So
city.
now they wanted them to sacrifice city by city. Go ahead.
Then many of the people were gathered unto him, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land.
So now they just went with what the Greeks said. They sacrificed and done all these abominable things that they wasn't supposed to. These was ones that wasn't keeping the law. So then these ones here, you could say, were like the Christians today. They just go with whatever religion's popping. Whatever religion's popping at the time, they just go with it. 1 minute did this religion, 1 minute did that religion. They change religion all the time. They change their customs all the time. Now the Greeks will be in power, they'll follow what the Greeks say. The Chinese will be in power, they'll follow what the Chinese say. Whereas with us, no matter who's in power, we still follow what the Lord says, man. No matter who's in power. And right now, our oppressors in power, the British is in power, and we don't follow their customs, man. The rest of the world celebrate Christmas, and we don't.
That's right.
The rest of the world take their children to Easter egg hunts. We don't, man.
That's right.
Our children is in the house doing all these Easter egg hunts, man. The rest of the world is what scared of COVID-19 and this new variant. What's it called? New variant. What's it called? What's it called? What's it called?
Micro something.
Is it Omicron or something along those lines? Everyone's scared of all these things, man. Scared of all this COVID. And listen, man, we don't care, man, because we know if the Lord's gonna kill you, the Lord's gonna kill you. Now, I'd be scared of COVID if I was smoking cigarettes, man. Because why? When you get COVID, it attacks your lungs and all of them things. I'll be scared if I was smoking cigarettes and doing all of those things. Read on.
And drove the Israelites into secret places.
And did what?
And drove the Israelites into secret places.
And they drove the Israelites into secret places, meaning they went on the run. They went into hiding, man. They're hiding, running for their life. Go ahead.
Even wheresoever they could not flee for succor.
And they fled because they was afraid for their life. Go ahead.
Now the 15th day of the month, Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar.
They set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar. Go ahead.
And builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah.
And they built idols throughout the city. Go ahead.
On every side.
Go ahead.
And burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found.
And when they did what?
And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found.
And they ripped in pieces the books of the law, man. Our law, they ripped it in pieces. And this is why till this day they're finding records. Why? Because when we was on the run from the Romans, they would bury their records because they know that they wasn't supposed to have the records with them. So to hide their records from the Romans, because they didn't want them having them, they would bury them. And then now when they're doing their excavations, digging up stuff, they're finding those records today. And the records that they're finding today is parallel with the King James version of the Bible, man. When they put them side by side, they're seeing what it says in these records that they're finding is the same as what it says in the King James Bible. Right. And the thing is, King James didn't even translate his from the records that they had there. He translated his from the Textus Receptus, which matches the Dead Sea Scrolls and everything else, man. So when people are telling you the Bible's been changed, it's all a lie, man. You tell them, show me the version which has been changed from, and I guarantee you they can't show you. You say, okay, the Bible's been changed, well, show me the original version, and then I'll come with my King James version and we'll see the differences. They can't tell you. They ain't seen this original version that they're talking about, man. All of this, the Bible's been changed. That's just rhetoric that Muslims have told them. Muslims have pressed this down. The Bible's been changed. The Bible's been changed. And then when you say, well, what's been changed? They can't tell you. They just say there's loads of different versions. Listen, it's all a lie, man. The Bible hasn't been changed, man. I can show you. I can show you an old copy from when it used to be on them little flimsy papers, which is the same as the new copies they're bringing up, man. Which is the same King James version. We can show you the scrolls. Everything's the same. And the people telling you it's been changed, they can't even read the Hebrew or Greek, man. What would they know? They can't read the Hebrew or Greek, so they wouldn't know if it's been changed or not. A Muslim man can't even speak Arabic, and he's trying to tell you about something which is in Hebrew and Greek. You just tell you a proper sentence in Arabic and break it down for you. You can't even do that. It hasn't been changed, man, because we're still reading these records today, which applies to our life, and it still applies today. Read on.
And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found.
So now, even our oppressor knows that these records is true, and this is why he was ripping them up, man.
Right.
This is why when we was in slavery, he didn't want you to have these records, man. Right. Why? Because he knows that there was truth. Now, you could have the Quran all day because that ain't going to do nothing for you. He knows it ain't going to do nothing for you. So you could have the Quran all day, and the Quran ain't ever going to give you the strength to do anything, man.
Right.
Whereas you'll read the Bible, and you'll read that Moses was in slavery, and then you'll see how Moses got out of slavery, and then you'll be like, you know what? I'm in a Moses situation. This is helping me. Now, Nat Turner read the Bible, man. And then what did he do? Caused the rebellion. So now they don't want you reading the Bible. Now you tell me which man's read the Quran and caused the rebelled against his oppressor. All they do is blow themselves up, man. That's all they do. You say Allahu Akbar and press a button, man. That's all they do. That's all the Quran makes you do is commit suicide. That's all it does. And blowing yourself up is suicide, man. At least the men in the Bible, when they went to war, they lived to see the results, man.
Right.
They lived to see what happens after the war. Whereas these Muslim men blow themselves up and don't even know how much kills they got or not. Listen, if I'm going to war, I want to know how much kills I've got, man.
Right.
I'm not going to blow myself up, and it makes no sense to get 70 virgins, man. Listen, man, if you've got game, you can get 70 virgins right here, man. Why you die to get that for, man? You've got game, you can get it right here, man. Read on Arbon.
They burnt them with fire.
And they burnt the records, man, because they couldn't have you reading it, because then it might give you strength and power and cause you to want to fight back. So they burnt all the records, and then what they do is they only give you the records that they want you to read. So that's what they done to us when we was in the Caribbean, gave us the New Testament and Psalms. So they only left you with those records, and most of the Psalms they didn't give you all the David's ones when he's praying for the death of his enemies. They took all of those out. They only left you with servants obey your masters. So they'd read that to you, and then you believe, well, I am a servant, let me obey my master. They took all the books of Exodus out because they know if you read that, you'd realize you're going through what them Israelites in Egypt was going through.
Right.
Go ahead.
And wheresoever was found with any of the book of the Testament.
And like we said, this is why they buried the records, because whoever was found with it was killed. So when they used to go on the run, they'd bury their records and be like, all right, then I'll dig them up later on. And then only now they're still digging up some of them records that was buried. Go ahead. And this is why sometimes when they're finding records, they're not finding it in its entirety. Why? Because at this time when these that was burying records, they didn't have what? The New Testament, because the New Testament wasn't around at that time. So the records that they was burying was just the ones that they had at the time. So this is why Muslims say, but they're only finding pieces of the Bible. It's because obviously was burying the records at different times in history. That's why. Now, obviously, you can't bury the New Testament if you ain't got the New Testament yet. So that's why you're finding certain books was buried and the certain ones is not there. Go ahead.
Or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death.
So now they said if any man wants to keep the law, then he should be put to death. If you was a man and you said, I'm not being a homosexual, they'll put you to death, man. Because they'll say, nah, we in charge of this and you're going to be with a man. And then you could either give in and be with a man. And listen, the Lord's going to kill you for being with a man anyway. Right. So why don't you just do the right thing and say, I'll never be with a man? Why don't you do that and just let them kill you? And guess what? The Lord will bring you back, man. Right. But while it is, when you thought that you only live once and you're never going to come back, it then makes you afraid to die. Whereas when you understand, oh, I've been here before and I'm going to be back, you'll be like, you know what? I'm going to do what the Lord says and I'm going to come back. And if it means I have to die 10 times in 10 different lives, I'm going to keep doing it, man. Because you know that you're going to keep coming back. But when you follow Christianity and you believe that you're going to die and float off to some place in the sky or beneath the earth, it makes you afraid to die, man. It makes you afraid to die. Some people believe that you die and you can watch your funeral and you can watch all of this stuff going on the earth. None of that stuff's true, man. That's all a lie. Listen, you die, and all you do is you go before the throne of God, and the Lord sends you back whenever He's ready to send you back, and you come back as a baby again, and then your job is to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, man, until you die again, and you keep coming back and keep coming back. There's no such thing as you floating off into the sky or going to a fiery place under the ground. It's all a myth. None of that's true. Read on.
Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities.
And now they killed as many which was found in the cities, men that was keeping the law. Why? Because they understood if we get rid of all the strong men, only weak men will be left. And these weak men will teach their children Christianity. Right. They will teach their children Christianity. They will teach their children Christianity. Then before you know it, we're a nation of Christians, man. And that's what we've become right now, a nation of Christians. Apart from us inside this room, man. Everybody outside of here is Christians, man. Whether they say they are or not. Read on.
Now the 25th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised.
And now, some of these sisters, man, caused their children to be circumcised, man. Meaning these sisters was down with the Lord, man.
Right.
These sisters, they reincarnated in the I.S.U.P.K, man. That's where they are today, man. They're in the I.S.U.P.K today, man. Wow. They caused their sons to be circumcised, whereas the rest of the world was like, we can't do that because the Greeks don't like it. They caused their sons to be circumcised, man. Go ahead. Go ahead. As in, million percent. Or they would be in here and not getting ready to celebrate Christmas.
Right.
They wouldn't be putting up there. Some people put up their Christmas tree. How long before Christmas? 12. Is it 12 days? and then apparently you're so-called cursed if you don't if you don't leave it for 12 days after Christmas. All of this nonsense. Listen, man, there's tons of people getting ready to put up their Christmas tree, doing all of their Christmas shopping. Listen, man, if you go to the city center, you can barely get into town because everyone's doing their Christmas shopping, and the people wonder why the Lord sent another strain of COVID. Because you're getting ready to celebrate Christmas, man.
That's right.
And the Lord don't want you celebrating Christmas, so there's going to be a ton of more strains, man. As long as you keep doing what you're not supposed to be doing, go ahead.
Now the 5 and 20th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar. Wait, it's like it.
What verse you at?
Verse 6. It's like it. Verse 61.
Go ahead.
And they hanged the infants about their necks.
They did what?
And they hanged the infants about their necks.
They started hanging the children by their necks, man. If you got your child circumcised, they would hang them by their necks. Go ahead.
And
this man's always been what? Hanging black people, man. It's nothing new. They even hang babies and whatnot. So obviously, when I see our people crying for them, I don't understand why. They don't ever cry for you. They hang your children by their necks, and they don't care what you think about it, man. Listen, man. Every day you turn on the news and you see black people being stabbing each other and killing each other, man. Finally, the other day I turned on the news and I see some Chinese boy, and I was like, well, that's his problem, man. I was like, well, that's the Chinese problem, man. What's in Jackie Chan and there's a Chinese problem, man? What's that got to do with us? We should only care about our people, man, because nobody else cares when it's us. Read on.
And rifled their houses.
And rifled their houses. They spoiled our houses. Go ahead.
And slew them that had circumcised them.
And now they killed them that had circumcised their children. Go ahead.
Howbeit, many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing.
And listen, many of them said they ain't going to eat nothing unclean, man. Many of them said, you know what? Me and my house are going to serve the Lord, man. They said the same thing that Joshua said in the book of Joshua, chapter 24, man. They said, me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord, even though everybody else wants to be like the Greeks. Not me and my house, man. Read on.
Wherefore they chose rather to die.
They chose what?
They chose rather to die.
They did what?
They chose rather to die.
It's not a sin to die, man. It's not a sin to die. They chose rather to die than eat swine's flesh, man. That's what they chose to do. Read on.
That they might not be defiled with meat. That they might not be defiled with meat.
They chose rather to die than not be defiled. So don't give me this nonsense that people say. So what if you're on an island and there's nothing else to eat? People always say, what if you're on an island and there's nothing else to eat? God won't mind if you eat pork. He will, man. The Lord would rather you die than eat that pork, man. Listen, if you're on an island and there's nothing else to eat but pork, you better just die on the island, man. And that pig better live. You better die and that pig better live, man. I don't want to see that pig die so you can live, man. You better die and let that pig live. And that's you serving the Lord. Read on.
And that they might not profane the holy covenant.
And they said they're not going to profane the holy covenant. Why? Because they understood how precious this covenant is. Only now, we don't know how precious it is, but they understood how precious this was, man. This is what set them apart from every other nation. Go ahead.
So then they died.
And they died, man. And it weren't no sin to die.
That's right.
And there was a very great wrath upon Israel.
Go ahead.
And that is the end of chapter 1.
Go ahead. Damn, we only in chapter 2.
Okay.
What time is it? Yeah, go ahead.
Chapter 2. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the son of Jarib from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin.
Mattathias was a rough brother, man. He stood for the Lord, and he had 5 sons. Now imagine if he made his 5 sons be weak, man. We would probably what? Still be being oppressed by the Greeks till this. We'd probably still being oppressed by them, but at that time we would have been oppressed for them by them more than longer. We wouldn't be in this room right now if he allowed his 5 sons to be weak, man. Read on.
And he had 5 sons: Johanan, called Cadiz, Simon, called Thassi, Judas, who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar, called Avaran.
Obviously, this is in Greek. Obviously, if you call a man a Thassi in English, obviously it's not going to end well.
God.
Just remember, obviously, meaning of words change. You call a man that today, he ain't gonna like it. But I read on.
And Jonathan, whose surname was Aphus.
Go ahead.
And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, "Woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my
saying, why was I born to see this misery, man? Meaning this man would rather die than see this, than rather live under the Greeks. He would rather be dead than live under Greeks ruling the earth. That's what he's saying. Woe is me, man. I don't want to live to see these conditions. Go ahead.
To see this misery of my people.
To see the misery of my people. And that's us in the I.S.U.P.K, man. We hate seeing the misery of our people.
Right.
This is why we be out at camp, man. We be out at camp on the podium with the microphone. Even though it's Saturday, we could be having a line or doing something else, man. We out there, man, because we don't like seeing the misery of our people. You got brothers that travel from London, from Manchester. Listen, we got tons of cities in here. We got London, we got Manchester, we got Rotterdam. Listen, man, give Rotterdam a hand, man. We got Rotterdam in here. We got Leicester. Listen, man. We got Leicester and Gloucester. We got tons of cities, man, from all over. We got Birmingham. Listen, man, how did I forget Birmingham? Where it started? Slovakia. We got brothers from everywhere, man. Why? Because they hate seeing the misery of their people. Whereas if we didn't care about our people, we could be at home playing the new Grand Theft Auto, man. I'll be playing San Andreas on the Saturday, man. While black people be dying if we didn't care. But what are we out there doing? Raising up black people, doing classes in the week, driving in the snow, and all of those kind of things, man. Read on.
Another one, kind. And of the holy city, and to
Hold on
dwell.
one second. Let me skip down because we damn it. Jump to verse 10.
Chapter 2 and verse 10. To what nation have not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils?
And this is us. Which nation has not had a part in the Israelites, man?
Right.
Till this day, every single nation's had a part in us. This is why you got what? Brothers in here today, we was what? Conquered by the English. Ira was conquered by the Dutchman. Because every nation has had a part in us, man. Every single nation. This is why our people all speak different languages and so forth, because we've been conquered by other nations. Go ahead.
All her ornaments are taken away.
All her ornaments are taken away. Like they took the menorah, the candlestick and stuff. Took everything else. Go ahead.
Of a free woman, she has become a bond slave.
And she was a free woman, meaning we was free. And now, because of the Greeks, we've become a slave, kind of like what we are today, man. We've become a slave. Anything we want, we have to go to them now. Go ahead.
And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory is laid waste.
Our sanctuary, something you could look at, man. Back then the temple was something to brag about, man.
Right.
People would travel to see it. Now you had Israelites who was living outside of Jerusalem, and one of our monuments was what? Our temple and all of those things. Someone would come and that was our attraction. Now the Greeks ruined it. We had no more attractions or nothing, man. Nothing, because they ruined it. Go ahead.
And the Gentiles have profaned it.
And the Gentiles have profaned it, meaning it ain't what it used to be, man. Go ahead.
To what end, therefore, shall we live any longer?
Meaning, what's the point of us living? We ain't got our covenants. We ain't got none of our vessels. We ain't got what made us great. We ain't got our laws. What's the point of us living, man? Our laws, this is our manual for our whole life. If we ain't got that, that means what? We're useless, man. Our life can't be run how it's supposed to be run, because we ain't got the manual or nothing. Go ahead.
Then Mattathias and his son rent their clothes and put on sackcloth.
So now they rip their clothes and put on sackcloth. Back then you'd put on sackcloth and people would see your apparel, what you're wearing, and they would know, okay then, the mourning, because of how they dressed and whatnot. So sackcloth was how you would mourn back then. Go ahead.
And mourned very sore.
Why? Because they love their people and they love their land, and they seen that it was given to the Gentiles, so they mourned very sore. Go ahead.
In the mean, while the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city of Modin to make them sacrifice. And when many of Israel came unto them, Mattathias and also his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias on this wise, Thou art a ruler.
So now they understood that Mattathias was what? A man with a reputation and a ruler. They understood that he had 5 strong sons and that people followed him. So they was like, if we could get him on our side, tons of other people do what we do. So they always look for black men who are strong, and this is why they go to celebrities, because they know if your celebrities bow down to them, what's going to happen? All their followers is going to bow down also. So that's why they go to celebrities, because they know that they're rulers. So that's who they go to today. Go ahead.
An honorable and a great man in the city.
And they said, you're honorable and great men in the city. So if men that ain't strong like Mattathias would see him bow down, they would then bow down. Because why? They see that he's strong. If they can get a strong man to bow down, all the men that follow him would bow down also. Go ahead.
And strengthened with sons and brethren.
And this is, you're strengthened with sons and brethren. So they wanted these sons to do what? Follow the Greek philosophy, follow their way of life. Go ahead.
Now therefore come thou first and fulfill the king's commandment.
So now they wanted him to come first. They wanted him to come before everybody else. They wanted him to be what? One of the first strong black men to do what? Bow down and worship the Greek king. That's what it said.
Right.
Come thou first. Go ahead.
Like as all the heathen have done.
And like as what?
Like as all the heathen have done.
And they know when Christ comes, everybody else will follow and come as well. Go ahead.
Yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends.
They said, you do this, you'll be one of the king's friends. Meaning, they saying, all right, we'll treat you good as long as you come and bow down to us. As long as you come and bow down to. Hold on, let me skip to. Give me the part about where it said the other men basically done some valiant act and tried to do this thing without Mattathias.
Is it 36? Is it?
Yeah, okay, give the brother a break.
Is it 20?
Let me see. Yeah, give me that one as well.
What is it? No, I'm gonna. Yeah.
It's 2 and verse 30. Hold on. 2 and I think it's 2 and about.
Was it 36?
Yeah, start from 31.
31, all right. Maccabees chapter 2.
Yeah, verse 31.
Maccabees 2:31. Now, when it was told the king's servant and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness.
So now they broke the king's commandment and they gone down to secret places in the wilderness, meaning they went into hiding. Go ahead.
Yeah. Verse 32. They pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they compassed against them and made war against them on the Sabbath
So
day.
the Greeks made war against them on the Sabbath day. Now these men right here, they didn't want to fight on the Sabbath. Why? Because this was their day where they would rest. So they thought they didn't fight back on the Sabbath. Go ahead.
Go on, verse 33. And they said unto them, let that which ye have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live.
Go ahead.
Verse 34. But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day.
So they said we ain't profaning the Sabbath day, man. They said we ain't gonna do nothing. We ain't coming to do the king's commandment. They weren't even gonna fight back. Go ahead.
Go on, verse 35. So then they gave them the battle with all
They
speed.
did what?
Gave them the battle with all speed.
Greeks gave them the battle with all speed, man. Gave them the battle, meaning they slaughtered them. They said, all right, you don't want to listen. They slaughtered them with all speed. Go ahead.
Go on, verse 36. Howbeit, they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid.
Go ahead.
Verse 37. But said, let us die all in our
And
innocence.
they said, let us die in our innocence, man. They said, let us die in our innocence. So these men wouldn't fight back because it was the Sabbath day. So that means on this day, you could rob these men, you could slap these men, do whatever you wanted to them. You could go do whatever you want to them on the Sabbath day because they want to die in their innocence, man. Listen, man. You touch me on the Sabbath day, we're going to war no matter what day it is, man.
That's right.
Listen, no matter what day it is, man. Any day, man, we're going to war. The Passover, any day you touch me, we're going to war, man. You ain't gonna, listen, I ain't gonna be giving you, I'm gonna die my innocency. Listen, you're going to die, man. You're gonna be telling me I thought you don't fight back on the Sabbath. I'm gonna tell you I ain't them other Israelites, man. I'm gonna tell you I'm one West I.S.U.P.K, man.
Right.
I'm gonna say you thought I was IUIC or GOCC. I'm gonna say nah, man, wrong house, man. That's what I'm gonna say to you, wrong house, man. Read on.
Quran 37. Now innocency, heaven and earth shall testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully.
Imagine how weak does that sound, man? You've got the option to try and fight back, and you're gonna say you put us to death wrongfully. Listen, man. At least go down with a fight, man.
That's right.
Be a man and at least go. Imagine this. It's the Sabbath day and you're watching your whole family die in front of you. Listen, man. How can you enjoy any Sabbath and your family's not there, man?
That's right.
Listen, man. You better go to war. You better go to war, man, and not be like these men. But every Israelite wasn't like these men, man. You know what? Give me the main part because we up on the time.
Right.
Basically, give me the main part. Actually, read on.
Read on.
Go ahead.
Quran verse 38. So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and children.
Imagine that, man. They kill your wife and your children, and you're gonna say this nonsense. Let's die in our innocency. Listen, man. You better defend yourself. I don't care what day it is, man. Anywhere you are, defend yourself. No one's supposed to put their hand on you and you not defend yourself. That's Christianity. That's Christianity, man. That's Christianity. You defend yourself, man. In our innocency. Listen, man. I ain't gonna be.
In his children and their cattle. So
And
the
they
no
killed their children and their cattle, man. You mean to tell me you seen your children die and you ain't gonna fight back? Listen, man. This is why you better come in the I.S.U.P.K, man.
Right.
Because we defend the children in here. We defend the wives and the children in here. We ain't gonna be like these men that stood aside and watched their family die, man. We ain't watching our family die, man.
Right.
We defending ourselves. It could be the Sabbath day, it could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, any day, man. Anything that ends in the word day, we defending ourselves, man. You attack any of us, we defending ourselves. We ain't gonna stand there and talk about you put us to death wrongfully. Listen, man, I'm gonna lawfully defend myself, man. I'm gonna say I'll put you to death lawfully. That's what I'm gonna say, man. You're trying to put me to death wrongfully. How about I put you to death lawfully, man?
That's right.
That's the difference between us and everybody else. Read on.
Quran. And their cattle to the
You hear
number.
some people being abused and talking about the Most High sees. Listen, man, you try and abuse us, the Most High is going to see us put you to death. Man.
That's right.
Right.
Rightfully, man. We ain't going to give you this nonsense standing there with our hands down while you're attacking us. Listen, man, don't be weak, man. Everybody else outside of here is weak and they believe they can stand and be abused. Not in here, man. Go ahead.
You're beginning that.
Listen, man, we defend ourselves in here, man. Read on.
Quran. And cattle to the number of 1,000 people. Verse 39.
To the
Now-
number of 1,000 people, man. And they just stood there and let it happen. Meaning what? There's hundreds of men there that what? Could have stood up and fought for themselves. But obviously they didn't because they believed they couldn't defend themselves on the Sabbath day. Go ahead.
Verse 39. Now when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for Salakia. They mourned for them. Right. So
Mattathias mourned for them, man. Why? Because even though they went off doing their own thing, Mattathias mourned for them. Why? Because they was his brothers, man.
That's right.
They was his brothers, so they mourned for them. Like how we mourn for all Israel, because they are brothers, man.
Right.
And this is why we always tell them, you should be right here, man. We tell them, you should be right here.
That's right.
And when they die, we still mourn for them, and we tell them, you should have been here. Maybe you should have followed our orders. If you came here, you would be still alive, man. They mourn for their brothers, man. Because what? No brother deserves to die by the hands of an oppressor.
That's
I
right.
don't care what he does, man. He shouldn't die by the hands of an oppressor. I don't care who he is or what he's done. So they mourn for their brothers, man. Same like we mourn for our brothers. Go ahead.
Quran, verse 40. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done and fought not for our lives,
If
and
we all do what?
do, Salakia. If we all do as our brethren have done and fight not for our lives.
If we all do what our brethren have done and fight not for our lives, go ahead.
And laws against the
So
heathen,
if we don't fight for our lives and our laws against the heathen, go ahead.
they will now quickly root us up out of the earth.
So look, this said will be what?
They will now quickly root us up out of the earth.
And this man wants to root us up out of the earth, man.
Right.
He wants to root black people out of the earth. Look how long they've been trying. Look how much years they've been trying to kill black and Hispanic people for, man.
That's right.
Because they want to root us out of the earth. This is nothing new what we're reading. They're trying to do this till this day. They've been trying to do this before that. They've always been trying to root us out of the earth because they hate us, man. And this is why we should never make no agreements with them. This is why we should never make no covenants with them. And this is why we here today celebrating the Feast of Dedication. Why? Because they got slaughtered, man, for messing with us. And that's why we here today, man. We ain't here with no Christmas tree and at no cotton party or none of that. This ain't none of that, man. We here, why? Because the Greeks got slaughtered, man. That's why we're here, man. We ain't here because, you know, this is just some birthday party or whatever. We here, why? Because the Greeks got slaughtered, man. And this is how we celebrate it. By the Feast of Dedication when we got everything back, man. Have we got time to go into that? What time is it? And you know what? We're up on the time, but I'll finish it off at the Wednesday class. So just log in the Wednesday class and we'll finish it up on the Wednesday class. Oh, there's no closing. So yeah, we'll finish it off the Wednesday class, so you get the full breakdown and understanding. So now we're gonna do the Lord's Prayer.
Okay, Shalom. This is the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge under command of General YAHANNA. Started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for a new brother or sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are here to be saluted only. They're here to shed themselves to the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to marry. So it's okay to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6 months period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18:21, Malachi 3 8 to 10 means 10% in the Hebrew, ma'ashara. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give to the Treasury Department of teacher priest fund, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give, upcoming holy convocations.
The Feast of Purim is February 14th and 15th.
God.
So that's the next one after today, February 14th and 15th, which is a 2-day feast. There's an opening and a closing.
Right. All Akim and Akwafim, check the bulletin board in the hallway. And all I.S.U.P.K social media. If anyone become a trooper in the school, start wearing all black boots, shirt, pants, and headband or scarf. And with that, I imagine this means rise and face the east. Call. Abanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Wadah, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwa, Taba'ah, Ratazaka, Hayah, I.S.U.P.K, Kawal, Hayah, Shemayim, the
In the English, our Father,
who
art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. In earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us our debt. We forgive our debtors.
As we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not into temptation.
Into temptation.
But deliver us.
But deliver us.
From evil.
From evil.
Thine is the kingdom.
Thine is the kingdom.
And the power.
And the power.
And the glory.
And the glory.
Ever. So be it.
So be it. And with that, the curse salute. I-M-A-D-M. Shabbat. I-M-A-D-M. Barak.
Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Shabrakafam.
Yad Yom Tov. Class dismissed.